right. Hello. How's it going, Vikram?
Going good. Elizabeth, thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, I'm really excited you're here. And everybody that's just tuning in, welcome to the Social Video Playbook. This is our space for the next 15 minutes where we're going to talk about all things social video. The yays, the nays, what has been working, what hasn't been working. And we're getting all these insights from real leaders in the space actually diving into social video, coming up with strategies, working with big teams from big brands to understand what's actually functioning out in the world of social right now. How has this pivoted over the years, and what are some learnings that we can all take away so that we can digest and dive in better and not make the same mistakes twice? I'm Elizabeth. I'm head of growth at Viral Moment. I'm also clearly the host of the Social Video Playbook. And here with me is Vikram from Airbnb. Vikram, tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for having me. As Elizabeth mentioned, I'm Vikram. I lead a couple of teams at Airbnb here, and I've been with Airbnb for about 2 years now. We've started from the Orkuts and the Facebook era to right now. Pretty much everything is a social gold mine of information, right? Yeah, I've had my journey through that span, and I'm really excited to speak to you about what we do and some of the other things that are currently in the social space right now.
Yeah, you have quite a big role and a lot on your plate, it sounds like, over there. So I am really excited to get some of your insights across video and how you're doing things.
Yeah.
So let's just dive right in. Let's just get to these insights. What is the number one shift in your industry that you think that brands just like aren't ready for?
There is a huge influence of AI driven content generation that's been happening, which is both good and also posing a little bit of a risk in some areas. But largely, if you see the good part of what the AI is bringing into it is scalability. We also have to be careful in terms of the authenticity or the relatability function of those videos that are being created and being posted on social, because a lot of folks tend to look themselves in terms of affirming with the brand, and if the messaging and the clarity of what needs to be shared via that content is strong enough for different audiences to pick on and make a decision, I think that's going to be a great game changer for overall, as for the tourism as well as for the social industry as such, right? So in a nutshell, I think ramping up to the scale and making sure the content is relatable and just generated with good intent is all that would be a game changer.
Yeah, and the amount of content now it's probably needed, especially in the tourism industry. I mean, it's wild what you probably have, what you need to look through and
Exactly.
understand. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot going on.
Exactly.
Have you seen a change in the way that brands are making decisions because of this, like this new type of content and this giant amount of it at the same time?
Making sure that it resonates with people's goals at that moment in time, and not just in travel, right, in any industry for that matter. Even if they want to push a certain marketing campaign with a video, at that point in time it has to be more authentic, and at the same time, what would make that person go and buy or do something that the brand wants, right? And I think that's more important. And it's not just about the old age where you bring in a famous celebrity or personality to actually endorse your particular product, but it's also about how do you make that person convert from what they have been doing before to your brand or your offering. I think first of all, there are a lot of mediums out there, so tailoring the right content to the right medium matters, because your TikTok is very vastly different from LinkedIn, from Facebook, and so on. And that's the way brands should be making those decisions, rather than just looking at metrics or what's been working for them in the past, right? The landscape is ever evolving. The users are always looking at new things to come off of these channels and present them with a different kind of a worldview. So brands have to really adapt to that situation and strategize accordingly.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. I mean, it's really easy to take like a piece of content, be like, okay, this is great for TikTok, and then I'm going to repost it to Instagram and I'm going to use it on Facebook. But unless you're really editing and tailoring to those audiences, it's probably not going to fall evenly across each of those spaces.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah. And that kind of brings us to our second section here, where we're diving into some of the pain points. So we just talked about, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of different places you have to be now, and there's just a ton of information that goes behind all of that. What do you think is like the biggest challenge across social video that you're experiencing right now?
Okay, one of the biggest challenges, at least from a measurement point of view, yes, relevance is very, very important. And when I say relevance, I think with so many videos out there, the best way to understand relevance is what it represents from your brand's point of view, right? But at the same time, you really need to add that context while you're measuring to understand whether this is relevant or not, and not just look at every other video that is out there because it has a hashtag or a word that is associated with your measurement plan. So I think the relevance of that is extremely important in terms of what you want to position as your brand's next biggest move, and what that also means for your customers to make that shift from where they were to your brand. And mistake could be extremely costly while you're putting out a video, because as I said, the relatable factor and the authenticity factor is never going to go away from now on, given that generative AI is prevalent among a lot of these spaces. So when people see something, they have to know that this brand represents a certain way that they are positioning themselves. Yeah, I think that would probably be one of the biggest challenges that a lot of brands would face in social media, that they have to stay relevant, make it more authentic and relatable, at the same time position themselves to create that mark as to what they want to do next.
And I mean, you come from a company that has a lot of places where they can play. I mean, travel and tourism hospitality is a huge space. How are
Yeah.
you facing these challenges? Like, what's been working or what hasn't really been working that you're like, don't try that. Wasn't successful.
Well, at least what we've known that it works very well with our customers is staying true to what we started off as a journey with, in terms of making people connect while they are visiting a place that is not their home. And again, we come from a place of that building authenticity as part of our brand's DNA. And I think it percolates across a lot of the strategies that we do. That for us, our community is at the core of everything. So even if you want to build a video, we want to make sure that, hey, when people post something that they have seen as a new experience or something new while they're traveling out on Airbnb, that's extremely important for us to double down on that and make sure that those stories get called out. And we make sure that it represents what we are, and they relate to us again, and it's more of a recall. And then there are so many other metrics that you can measure to look at rates, rebooking rates, or the kind of churn that we are seeing, and so on, right? I mean, there are endless metrics that will tell you how a video has performed, but at the end of the day, if there's one video that has actually made a mark, that's going to be extremely important for us as a brand. But the challenge comes in, again, the noise of the content that's out there, right? It's
Mhm.
in which channels would you focus on. And it's not just about the one that gets the best bang for the buck, but which is giving us a best audience pool for us to understand their behaviors. How are they traveling? What are the different pain points that they're facing while they're traveling, and how can we provide more authentic experiences in the future for them to continue staying with us, rather than moving on to maybe other different kinds of offerings. So the biggest thing is, if you want to position a narrative or a story via a mechanism like video, I think what's important for us is to, or the challenge that presents itself is, where do we want to make our audience come back? The channels, if it's going to be TikTok and if it's getting a lot of attention, then we double down on that, and we want to put more strategies behind how do we make our customers land on TikTok as a medium. And we keep on investing in those kind of strategies, and that's what led to one of the releases last year, which was a huge hit for us. And we brought in so many first time bookers and so many other people as part of the entire Airbnb community. So yeah, I would say that it's not a challenge, but it's something that every brand has to look at in terms of how you resonate with your customers, and what do you actually want to provide as a content.
Yeah. And so, what do you do when it comes to, let me rephrase that. If you had unlimited resources, how would you solve this problem? Would it be tools or people, or I don't know. Like, what would it be that would help you to solve this problem if you could literally have anything in the world?
Well, I'm never short of saying that I need more people, right? I would never absolutely turn down an offer where I get more people to work on this, because it's a lot of data that comes in on a daily basis, right? You have billions
Data.
of views on TikTok. You have so many people signing up on these newer platforms, and every other new platform has some sort of a content that's being churned, right? But when it comes to video in particular, I think if I had a lot of resources, a lot of people working on it, my first thing would be to look at the way that it can relate to different personas within the kind of people who are interacting with that video, not just the people posting it, but also the people interacting with it, because that is also an option for me to build my strategies moving forward. I have people commenting on my videos, but I don't know who they are. If I
Mhm.
have a way to understand who those people are and how are they resonating with my video and what made them make a decision at that moment in time, would be extremely helpful. So that helps in building a much better strategy for me for in the future. And the tools are going to be like excellent enablers for that. Doubling down on the kind of personas that I build. The oftentimes the question that we get are, can we get a little bit more closer to what these audiences are exactly like when they comment on our videos or when they interact with our content? So with all the tools and all the resources that I have, one of the strategies I would focus on by using video is how much granular can I get by the different layers of that video that it has, than just the message or the content. I mean, data is out there. It just has to be structured in a more logical format. And I believe video as a medium can help triangulate some of that information and then help brands make decisions way more better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a tweet, you can't see the Swiss Alps in the background, but on TikTok video, you can.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
the video concept has really changed that whole space. And you've
Exactly.
touched a little bit on this. We're just going to dive right into the section around success. So, what have you seen as a common mistake that's made when using or interpreting social video?
Chasing your usual metrics or so-called vanity metrics, like impressions or engagements, or how many views did my TikTok reel or Instagram reel got me. And the one important thing is, if you're just chasing your vanity metrics, it's not going to gain you any significant mileage when it comes to insights narrative, because yes, we got so many impressions or so many engagement in a particular reel. The next question is, so what? And it's probably, it depends on the kind of stakeholder that you share that information with. Predominantly, folks from marketing or communications would be very satisfied with what they get from your vanity metrics. But folks from experiences or product or for any other more growth driven businesses, they look at does this video tell me or does not tell me at this moment that I need to be focusing on for next year or the next couple of years. That's where I said demographics, or looking at information like how many times was a video rewatched or how many times it came up with an
Mm.
algorithm. Like you would have posted this video probably a couple of days ago, but it would have come again months afterwards because that person had a certain interest. Your strategies have to be not just be made on the keywords or the hashtags that they use, but also on some other metrics, like how many times was it watched during a certain time frame, and why was it being watched. I think the relevancy of that particular point in time situation also matters. And I think at the end of the day, you need to act on all of these metrics and all of these indicators outside of just your views and impressions. And lastly, I think what people also overlook is, again, as I mentioned before, is on the comments. Like, no
Mhm.
matter what you do, if you don't look at your comments, if you don't see what people are talking about there, even if it's a troll or even if it's something that's not going to be relevant, you still have to go through that to understand there are still people out there who would want to give you some insight into what they are feeling and how they resonate with your brand.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's true. I think if you do only rely on views, what is it really telling you? Like if you're getting 500,000 views, cool. Are they, is that 500,000 sales? Or those 500,000 customers that are going to actually convert at some point? Like, what are you really knowing? And I love how you tapped into also talking about the comments, like who is commenting, because that tells you if those 500,000 views are actually those right people, or if suddenly they're talking about, KFC, and you're like, well, hold on, this is about an Airbnb in the Swiss Alps and it does this amazing thing. You're all very, everyone's very misaligned. So I think that's great. Brands should totally be measuring more than just the basic engagement metrics, and the
Yep.
demographic data and everything else you mentioned is really imperative for that. And this kind of ties along with where we're going next. what's one underrated insight that leaders in your field should be acting on now?
One thing for my industry, I think that's very important is, as I said, how many people are coming as first time bookers, right? And we are looking at different kinds of platforms to understand what drove them to make that decision to go for an Airbnb as opposed to your traditional hotels, or maybe what made somebody book an Airbnb because somebody else went to that place and found that to be a life-changing experience for them. Like their authentic experience actually made someone else book that. And that's something we also are thinking to prioritize, or maybe understand if that trend is maybe not that big, but at least it helps us, as you said, tie it back to a metric that we can say that so many people use this, maybe paying forward, or this kind of a way to book an Airbnb, and then that increased our bookings by X percentage this quarter or this year or whatever. So I think that's one of the most important thing, where we understand how many of our social media users ultimately become Airbnb users. And I think that goes for any other brand. The idea behind people going on social and adding videos, again, is to look at the kind of conversions. And at the same time, that the underrated insight here is how many of them actually went ahead and did that. So what's going to drive it? It's not the views that is going to do that, but there's something that made them do it. So that's going to be a great way to understand your marketing funnel also, right? Where did your largest conversions come from? Is it through emails? Is it through messages? And social media is the easiest and cheapest way to get things done. So might as well use that insight a lot more and double down on that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about, really knowing your customers at the end. And I love this, like, who else raised their hand and also said they had a problem? Because if there's one person posting it, they have a problem, and then more people are raising their hand, then it's like,
Yeah,
how many people just are still sitting there like, oh yeah, I agree, but like silent. Like who
exactly.
are like those Reddit stalkers that are just reading for the
Exactly.
information but not actually commenting. Me, I'm one of them, but like, yes, they exist. Your market's
Yes,
bigger.
and it's always your upwards and downwards aren't actually going to tell you that people are facing that, right? I mean, everyone's mindlessly scrolling away on different platforms, hoping to get something that actually resonates with them, right? And I can't stress this enough, even for my brand and for the previous brands that I work for. The authenticity and the relatability is absolutely important, and
Yeah.
which is why the right content at the right moment in time is very, very key in one, conversion, and the other is retention. And at the same time, I think the first impression of your brand when they see it on any of these channels is extremely important, because at that point in time it makes or breaks their perception. And when they say, hey, you know what, I'm going to book this because I saw my favorite influencer or somebody, even my within my friend circle, have gone to this place and I really want to get there. Like, you have to, as you said, know your audience. And if there is a great way the tools can enable to understand how are these people even related within their circle, that would be even way more powerful from a marketing perspective. I know earlier Facebook had this nifty feature where it said, okay, if you are at a certain place in time, then there are three other people that are within a certain miles of radius,
Yeah,
right?
I remember
It
that.
came, yeah, it came from a place of sharing as much of information with all of these channels. But again, with GDPR and PII, I think it's going to be extremely challenging. But there's always a way to triangulate that information and say that, okay, you know what, because of Instagram, there were X bookings on this particular listing in Airbnb, and that's a great driver of conversion. We need to keep investing again. So that's an underrated insight, and I'm definitely doubling down on sharing that with my leaders as well.
Yeah, I love that. Is there anything that, maybe especially when you're talking to your leaders or others that don't quite spend as much time in social video as you probably do? Is there an assumption about social video that they just get that's totally wrong and you're like, well, that's not actually how this world works?
Wow, that's a good question. So I have actually not come across any assumption, but I think when it comes to decision making, social media in general, right, is seen as more as a validation channel, or a tool that affirms an existing emotion that probably a lot of brands would be seeing from their internal data. And they would see that, hey, we're already seeing an uptick in a customer issue going up. Do we see that on social media? And they're like, yes, we see that. And then everyone is like, thumbs up, yeah, this is big enough for us to prioritize, correct? But from a video perspective, or in general social media, right, I think the assumption is that It's only important when it goes viral,
Mhm.
but it's not. I mean, the virality factor is not the only thing that's important for anyone to make decisions. And most leaders assume that, hey, this is important because it went viral. Even a post that has a single view, but that is something extremely important for your brand's maybe ethos or the way that you function, that is what people have to immediately action on. And that is something that we've been working with our leaders to kind of build a framework to say, hey, you know what, it's not always about the metrics, it's also about what it means for our brand. I mean, they're sharing a lot more information which inherently you wouldn't be able to get from a text or a comment that they share on social media. So I think that's what brands should be focusing on when it comes to, looking at beneath the surface, what does it mean for them to look at those videos and prepare a strategy. And everyone is a content creator at this moment. They all have videos, they all are able to share something, and it's not just about the influential capacity, it's also about the true issue or the true need that they are sharing in that platform. And for brands which are in different industries, I think what matters to them, as I said, to the core, is what they should double down and understand, that their users are, screaming in a very different way, to let the brands listen and say, okay, hey, this is what my biggest problem is, go fix it.
Yeah. And we say that at Viral Moment all the time. It's like social video is your biggest focus group and you don't have to pay for it.
Exactly.
It's just
It's
sitting there.
easy. It's
Yeah.
sitting there.
You just have to go listen. Like go
Exactly.
watch, go learn, go and communicate with the people that you want to know more about. You know, but way back when you had to put them all in a room and pay them all, I don't know, $100 or whatever it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
$1,000 to sit there and pitch them ideas. And now it's just they're just telling this to you. They're shouting it at you. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
fabulous. And there's so much data that goes behind it. So it brings me to our last question. If there was one thing in 2025, so we've talked about like, you know, the scope of the world, if you could have anything and your resources were unlimited, but I want to limit you and I want to say in just 2025, so it most likely already exists in the world, what would make your life easier if there was just like one thing that you could get that could help you with all of these different challenges and understanding kind of the social landscape that's happening now?
I would definitely say that video combined with the right AI feature, and when I say AI feature, it largely boils down to how am I able to summarize the essence of what that video is about and break it down into a few key aspects that I'm looking for in terms of the tonality, in terms of the demographic, in terms of maybe the situation or the scenario in which the video was made, and what is the intent of the customer. So those things, if it was made available for me easily, or at least from a couple of different analysis that I can go down to do, I think that would make anyone's life a lot more easier. Because with so much of content that's out there, what I first need to understand is how is this relevant to me? And then the next thing is to understand what is the demographic of my audience. And third is where are they sharing this from, and what am I missing out on this geographic that I can understand? And probably if those aggregated situations are present in one particular location, which is extrapolated to another location, I think it's a way for me to experiment and test on some of what we're doing in terms of campaigns and marketing pushes there as well, based on the audience, and then understand what's happening there and how are my strategies working well or not. Like, these videos have to be first understood for authenticity, and a lot of videos right now, if shared in good intent, again, are giving us good information, but some of them have the ability to be misrepresented or
Mhm.
misguided to a lot of people. So many tools are working to make sure that misinformation doesn't get spread. But if a tool is able to sift through all of that problem and tell us that these are your videos that are extremely relevant for you as a brand and for your particular campaign that you're probably intending to do in certain geography like Japan or Turkey or anywhere that's important, I think that would be great. What we see on social media actually drives change in what's happening inside.
Yay. Awesome. Well, it's a great way to wrap it up. Thank you so much for your time, for your insights. I'm really excited to share these. It's been great chatting with you. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for having me once again, Elizabeth. I really loved interacting and I really had a great time answering all of these questions. And it actually took me back to a lot of the work that I've done in the past, not just for Airbnb, but it was great talking to you on these areas of social media and especially on social video. So thank you so much for having me once again. Bye.